for Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019. Let the record show all aldermen are present. I'll do a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting from February 19th. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Nate Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Unfinished business? None. So new referrals for consideration. Discussion. 412R. What's that mean?
Rear.
Rear.
It's a lot.
North 13th Street, a dangerous building. Is this the one you sent to us on email?
Yeah, this is one I put on there.
Okay.
This is a little house you may not have noticed unless you drive slowly by. It's behind Country Fair, the Country Fair near Dresser. And it's more visible from 12th Street, even though the address is 13. Extremely dilapidated. I sent you guys pictures today. There's been someone living on the porch periodically.
On the porch?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody live in the house?
No. Nick, can you tell us what the legal status of this thing is?
He may actually be squatting in the house. We've had complaints from some of the neighbors about that. So the legal status of this is an estate issue. The owner is not around. There's no one really to go after.
It's not Ernie Keebler, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a dilapidated structure that's become a hazard, especially going into the summer with kids being out and about. That's why it was open.
There's about there are three structures on the property. Windows are knocked out. Saw the one picture I sent you. People are throwing garbage in it. I mean, it is beyond horrendous.
Yeah.
Cats are in there. I'm sure there's lots of other critters in there as well, coming and going, besides the vagrant who's squatting there.
At least he's not paying rent.
That's true.
So I'm recommending the city demo it. I don't know the price, but
Yeah, it looks
But-
like it's been in that condition for
We're
years.
gonna push it over.
It's a small property. I can't imagine that it would take very much. But with a squatter, what is the legality as far as, do we have the right to evict someone who's squatting? I don't know what New York State laws are with
I was
regards.
down there the other day, he's not really, what I would consider squatting. He was in there's like a foyer entrance, so he's kind of sleeping in with some bags. So he's not actually in the house. The house is boarded secured.
Oh.
Somebody secured it in some fashion. We, moved him on down the road. So he's not living in the house.
Okay. Okay.
At least from what I've gathered from my beat down there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So it's the same as.
Because I mean, I don't know. There are different legalities in regards to if somebody is indeed squatting.
Usually that you run into those cases in a foreclosure where the bank is trying to foreclose and someone's moved into the property.
Okay.
Squatting.
But if we were to try to order it down, would we run into similar problems?
I don't think in this case, because in a lot of those cases that you're talking about squatters and the rights that they have, it's in an eviction process on what would be considered normally safe structure.
Right.
This
right.
is a dangerous
right.
building.
Yeah.
It's in imminent danger of collapse. So
Yep.
we would certainly, at that point, if we run into an issue, run into a judge and get an order.
Okay.
Allow us to.
and Nick, it has been declared a dangerous building, and we have the authority to knock it down.
That's what we're doing here. Yeah, and the paperwork is being processed by codes to give the official letter also to the recommendation of codes and fire chief to have property.
So we don't know anything about asbestos levels or anything like that?
We
Probably won't. It's probably too dangerous for them to go into.
We'll just tear it down, huh? Assuming it is, we'll assume it is and tear it down that way.
And it doesn't look that big, so.
It looks like a hunting camp. That's
Real dinky.
that's why I asked if Ernie
I think
Keebler.
it's one of the old houses or cabins they had next to the railroad tracks years ago when that used to be the railroad yard.
Yeah. It's been there
Quick
for
question,
years.
Nate. Are you asking for just the one property or all three buildings to come down? You said there's
All
three
three,
buildings.
there's a shed, a little outbuilding, and a house.
Okay.
So the whole thing needs raised to the ground. It's bad.
So does it have power? Is that a light on or is that a hole in the ceiling with something?
There is power on that.
Really?
There's power on?
They just call National Grid and they clip it at the street though.
Yeah, there's
I'm
a
not-
gas meter on it.
Logistically, I'm just
Yeah.
surprising that
We've
there's
ordered-
no
I talked to
utility.
Captain Jennings about that, and
Yeah.
he told me they were working with NIMO to try to get it shut off, but
Yeah,
just
we'll
like we
have
shut
that.
people's water off and stuff, there's legalities about that.
But
He said he was working.
Who's paying the bill?
well, what happens is if they transfer power out of your name and it doesn't go into anybody's name, they just leave the meter there until there's a large spike in usage, and then they say, hey, we're going to come pull this meter, or we're going to disconnect it at the street to stop whoever's squatting power. But if there's nobody there, they just kind of wait for the next tenant or homeowner or whoever to switch into their name, so they don't have to actually send a guy out. They just do a reading from whatever office.
We want the power,
Yeah, I
we want the
think
power
EJ
shut off, we
Right.
want the gas shut off completely.
Sure.
Because it's two less ignition sources for our employer.
And EJ was looking into that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a foundation, like a basement, or is it just on a slab or posts? Not that it matters. Just
Nate,
curious.
did you go take those pictures?
Yeah.
So, did you see a basement, a thing? I mean, were there, did you?
I didn't go in.
I mean,
I wouldn't go in.
I guess.
Got as far.
It
Pictures
looks
are enough,
like one
right?
of those little houses they had on a slab.
Yeah,
There's a
right.
lot of those around.
When I was walking around, I heard lots of rustling and critters, so I didn't get too close.
I'm
Like
assuming-
I would move something and leaves would like,
So I guess my concern though, from a public safety is how did, I've been on the council 5 years and we've never even heard of this property, so like,
well, I'm gonna be honest, I mean, it's in my ward and I've driven by it 10 million times and never really, it's just tucked back off the road. It does not catch your eye. And
but I
it's
mean,
painted
high
green.
grass, like, look at all this. This
You
is-
probably won't see it.
I thought they got
until it's
calls on it.
blossoms.
But when you,
Someone
if
said.
you go to Country Fair, just take a look, it's
Yeah.
right there. It's just.
Yeah, you see it from 12th Street, right?
Mhm. Yeah, you really see it.
I mean,
from
I guess
far.
I always
drove
assumed
over
it
there.
was a shed.
Or
You
someone's,
know,
like,
someone's
guest house or
Yeah,
something.
someone's
Yeah,
little
somebody's
shed.
backyard shed.
Someone's
Huh.
backyard shed. That's what it looks like.
Okay.
Well, the neighbors will be happy.
Yeah.
I wanted that's what I was making the reference to, Ernie Keebler. That's kind of what I wanted to dub this house after looking at your photos. Ernie Keebler, the king of the Keebler elves. That's what that house looks like. So.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you.
So
Okay.
Nick, the process is
It
to
is.
move it to resolution for declare it a dangerous building and it can be torn down.
I just hope we don't
So
lose Kist.
that's what I would like to do unless anyone has any opposition to that.
Well, it's not a PL form, right? So we.
No,
It'll
it would be
next week.
next
Yeah.
week.
PL
Okay.
resolution. And Nate, can we get a cost before we vote on it? I'm
I don't
sure
know what you think, Chief.
Captain Jennings should probably be able to
Do you
that.
think we'll have one by next week, Chief? Or can we get one?
Why, we've already.
I thought he was in the process of getting it now.
Good.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion? Everything's good? Okay. Next, do not block driveway on North Union Street. I'm guessing this is
This
Mr.
is,
George.
yeah, it's me. Got a couple photos to take a look at. Had a call from 3 residents that are joining these properties with their, basically as their driveways. And during different times, basically Sundays, during some sporting events at the rec center, they have the occasional blocked driveway. And you can see in the one specifically, it's a lot like the Mirchi sign, do not block drive, where there's a very small island there right next to the utility pole that people think that they can park in, and they try to make that happen. And I've seen it on occasion where they do, and it gets real tight there from time to time. So talked to Bob Ring a little bit, and he said basically we could probably put up one sign by the utility pole and do a do not block drives sign.
So Brian,
Sure.
along this street, because, you know, when we go over there for the Italian Fest
Sure.
and everything, almost every house has a little spot like this. Are we gonna end up putting a, don't block the driveway for everybody? I mean, when you drive around over there, there's a lot of little spots like that people think they
I
can
would say
park.
in the one photo, Wendy, you'll see the crosswalk,
Mhm.
and then you'll see a little island where
Yeah.
it angles out.
I don't see
There's
that.
a short, section there of subway. It's kind of a unique thing. I see driveways, but I don't
Mhm.
see that unique scenario throughout all of North Union Street.
Yep.
The only other place that I saw was in front of Mirchi,
Mirchi's that
and
we
then
like
over by
it.
the
I'm coming.
Pulaski and St. Stephen's Club, so.
Okay,
Uh,
it's a busy part of town,
is.
between the clubs and the new store down there and the restaurant, so, and the activities at the church, so it's a busy end of town.
Yeah. But no one wants their driveways blocked, right?
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll put up a do not block.
That's what I'm saying, everybody wants one.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
point.
And this would be a singular sign located by the utility pole, hopefully, so it wouldn't be real, a lot of it wouldn't be an eyesore, basically. It would be next to another pole. Probably even put it on the utility pole, if you will. Make sense, Bob?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if I can add my 2 cents, I think we're gonna enter into an area here where we are gonna be inundated with people requesting signs for their
That's my point.
driveways. I think the answer is enforcement, and maybe taking a look at our ticket for driveway, and instead of it being $20, we make it $50. So, that's just my 2 cents.
I can get on board with that too. Good point.
Matter of fact, I'll probably, if this goes through, I'll probably ask one over by my house. So.
Call your alderman.
Yeah, but in
Trying to do it now.
In fairness, Bill, I mean, you don't have a church right across the street from you, you don't have a rec center right across the street from you where there's.
You have a lot of situations, and
you don't have
I know what you're saying.
clubs down the street, you don't have a restaurant down the street, you don't have a school right there.
Well, and
So
then there's that
it's
tiny
not-
island that people think they can squeeze into.
They can
Yes.
squeeze it.
So,
Yep.
you know, you take away any one of those factors, and maybe the problem doesn't exist, right? It's just kind of like that perfect
Situation.
Yeah.
That tiny little island, that sells it to me, I don't know. But
It's amazing people think they can park it.
Mm-hmm.
They give
Oh,
her a
no.
go.
Like, no one ever, you don't
Give
get,
her
I
a
mean,
go.
even if I do something like that, when I get out of my car, I look and I'm like, and I get back
Little
in and I move
tired.
my car, you know? I mean,
Would
if
we
you,
be, just another thought, would we be, like was done up around the high school, would we be better off to paint the spaces, on that particular street, like was done up there, because there was a problem with driveways being blocked and that, and you had the lines put in there, and, I wonder if that might be an answer, an alternative to putting up all these signs.
Yeah.
Works great until it snows.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, and just to piggyback on your problem, one of the other problems I'm seeing is more and more people parking in their front yards, you know,
Yeah.
on the grass or
Done.
wherever, and, you know, and I tell people, if a neighbor complains and I say something, I said, you know, do you realize your water lines are buried under there, and you're gonna have the responsibility, if you crack one, of replacing it, because cars are heavy. But that's another issue that I see a lot of people parking in the front yards.
I think we have a law in the books, you can't park in the front yard.
Well, we need to enforce it,
Yeah.
well, somebody who holiday.
but it's enforcement,
Yeah.
because they're
National
still
Trophy
doing
Car
it.
Day. Good front yard, start waxing it.
Okay, any further discussion?
I mean, at the end of the day, Brian, you know, you're the alderman.
Yeah,
And
I will-
if you
I will
feel the
submit a
need
PL.
to put forth a resolution or a PL, by all means, you know, do so. I mean, I know I've got parking issues in my neighborhood, and at the end of the day, you've got to represent those people.
Yep.
So if you feel it's warranted, then please bring it forward.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Approval of committee reports. There aren't any. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Can I, wait?
Okay.
We do have, is it under this committee, or problem we have with the building here, is that? We have an issue going on with the building here, we need to discuss it tonight.
Okay.
I don't know if it'd be under public safety, or, I don't see, it wouldn't be under, well, it could be under finance. I guess. Yeah, it could be under committee of the whole. We can discuss it either under finance
It
or.
says safety hazards.
What's that?
It says safety hazards, so public safety
Let's
is.
go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Is everybody on hold, safety?
Yes.
Yep.
So we're in the discussion item, which is.
Do we need to make a motion, or is
I
it no?
know. Like, I feel like we didn't change.
No,
the agenda.
don't for discussion.
Not for
item.
discussion.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So discussion regarding
Municipal
handicap
building-
entry?
Municipal building entrance hazard.
Okay.
Here's, Bob, I'll let you take that, pass these out, and, that's the whole-
Everybody's got one.
Okay.
Jim,
We
I
have a
got
problem
two.
with it'd be the northwest entrance of the Times Square northwest entrance of the municipal building. And Bob gave me a memo on March 26th to explain what's going on here. And Reese, we've been looking into the matter. Bob met with Dennis Cook today to go through it, and I think he has some comments on that to make on this. So we provided you with pictures here and issues going on. So Bob?
Structural engineer.
Do you want to come to the table? Are you cool there?
Yeah, I can sit here. I'll just kind of run through the pictures and the issues and kind of what my thinking was. I kind of determined this as a public safety hazard. We've got some pretty major structural issues at this entrance, wear and tear from salt and water over the years. So on the left picture there, you can see that the plate that was installed next to the cone, kind of extension of the ramp, and some spalled concrete underneath it. We had our parks department, we're gonna repair that, just put some hydraulic cement over top of it, and what they found was a big hole. Underneath that is a hallway into our basement area. So underneath that, and you can see that on the picture to the right where the grate is, it heads under that concrete portion where you see the two cones. This is the right picture. That hallway extends underneath this grate and underneath that concrete deck. There's about an 8-foot drop underneath.
So you lift this thing off the ground, then it's a hole?
Just in this area for the most part. Underneath where the plate is kind of right up against the wall. Access to an old generator room, and there's a bed in there. So kind of head into the second page. The picture on the left, right in the center there, you can almost see the outline of concrete in the silver portion with three light poles in it. That is the concrete, or that is the metal plate that you saw on the first picture. So there's a hole completely in the concrete, that underneath the plate that is starting to fail. Concrete's starting to fall on that concrete deck. Picture on the right is an old vent. So our whole heating system vented through that hallway. It's since collapsed from concrete kind of falling and rust. Kind of heading to the third page. Another picture of the vent in that hallway. And then you can see concrete tends to lose a lot of strength, especially when rebar is exposed, because the rebar will start eroding away as soon as it's exposed. You got to get it covered up right away. But this has obviously been neglected for a long period of time. Where this rebar is exposed, there's an inch or two of concrete. Originally, it was about 6 inches of concrete reinforced with rebar. So the structural strength of this area is compromised quite a bit. So that's in the hallway, along that area, which is from the Times Square entrance. If you were to turn right, leaving the building in front of where the little garage door is, like George has this area and the access to the elevator shaft. That whole area.
So is this right here? See those three dots? That right there?
That's just the vent.
Is it that?
No, it's a completely different.
Oh, it's a completely different
area. This is the right here is where there's a hole. So if we were to remove that plate, you would have an 8-foot drop essentially right at the end of the ramp.
What's
We
the
need to
diameter of the whole ramp?
It's about 8-10 inches. The picture to the right is a beam. It's really hard to see the detail on there, but on the lower part of the page, that concrete beam is, we're kind of moving into inside pictures. There's a long crack in it, and it's starting to spall itself. There isn't rebar exposed in this yet, but some of these issues are starting to make their way inside the building. So turning to the next page, picture on the left, this is behind that, underneath the ramp, inside the building, in one of our boiler rooms. You can see the rebar that's connected to the ceiling, so what you're looking up is up at on the left picture, water infiltration, rusting of the bolts and things that connect it to the ceiling. And on the right, in the upper left above that electric box, more exposed rebar and water. It was wet that day. That's coming again from the entrance ramp in between the foundation wall and the deck, the floor, the building, and eroding that concrete away. So those are really the major, repairs that I think need to be done before next construction season. We had Denny Cook in to kind of confirm that he's going to do a write-up on his evaluation. He's a structural engineer. I'm not a structural engineer, but I know concrete well, but he's going to do kind of a further evaluation, a second opinion. Kind of getting to the root cause of these issues. The first kind of being neglect. I know there was money in the budget for 5 or 6 years to replace this area. It was taken out. Preventative maintenance is perhaps something that should be considered for issues like this. But if you're on the next page, the cracks, you can just see that ceiling and cracks. There's water getting through there, and we think the main cause of this is it's a shaded portion of the building. So this really doesn't see hardly any sunlight during the day, especially in the winter. And salting the ramp and salting the area is just water freeze thaw is running down that ramp, especially into the area where that plate was, and just eroding this concrete, eroding the rebar, and
Isn't there a pooling
getting into
issue
the building as well too.
Wasn't there a pooling issue at one point?
Yeah.
Is there a drainage issue?
Yeah, there's definitely a drainage issue in the parking spaces, and that water is making its way underneath the curb, underneath the sidewalk. That's kind of a long-term right, like fixing the root cause. And the emergency, the initial part is where you've got that long drop and you've got that concrete that's failing, and probably in another year could be really structurally unstable. And then again, trying to fix the main issue would be perhaps covering that portion of the building. That ramp, again, it's shaded underneath the ramp. It's just leading water into low-lying areas, maybe sealing all those cracks, or replacing the concrete and sealing the cracks along the bottom of the building would be just a start.
So do we need to wait on the write-up to get an idea of what the recommendations would be? Or do you feel comfortable giving us your thoughts now? Or do you want?
Yeah, he's not going to recommend what needs, what to fix. He's
So what
going
needs?
to make a confirmation that this is an emergency repair.
Sure.
So what do you see the cost of us fixing it or doing anything now?
I really don't know. I really don't want to estimate. I think it will be significant, below 100,000, but it's going to be significant. I don't think that concrete needs to be taken out. That might cause some other issues structurally. It just needs to be covered and sealed, and some structural strength has to be put back into that concrete, and that's just initially. After that, we've got to fix the root cause of it.
I'm sorry. I see that like that ramp seems to be the trap for all of this. They salt the ramp, all the ramp flows down, it hits this concrete, it pulls back. I think if you put the ramp on a different side of the building, maybe where there's more sunshine and it can easily be accessed to wash it away. It's not over top of a utility corridor. I mean I think, and then doing what you're talking about and sealing it as a first preventative measure for safety. And I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, but there's no doubt, there's no question that this needs repair. To move the ramp means we're going to have to do another project on another part of the building.
Yeah, but
I see your point, but maybe this is not an ideal area, but.
No, I'm just saying this problem's going to keep happening with this ramp here. I'm just saying you could probably easily cut this ramp down in our city garage, make it fit on the other side of the building and reinstall it. Because the ramp looks like it's in decent shape.
Well, we have a handicap entrance on
Oh.
both sides of the building.
So go by ramp.
Well, Bob, what's your recommendation right now? Like, when you say it's an emergency repair, you mean like tomorrow emergency or a month from now emergency or?
Before the construction season's over, I think, I guess I would recommend that that entrance is closed if the repairs aren't made before the end of the construction season.
So you mean by the end of summer?
Yes.
Is there a reason why we gotta have this sheet metal ramp too? I mean, couldn't we have a graded concrete pour, so that, you know what I mean, wasn't? I mean, I know it's probably, or would that be part of your recommendation, is to kind of replace that all with something a little more?
Long term, I mean, we could come up with a plan. I don't know how much strength we could add, or how much weight we could add underneath this whole ramp.
Oh,
Is
because it's
a hollow area. That beam is having issues. So the area of the beam that I showed you that had the crack in it is falling is underneath this ramp.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Horizontally this way.
So let me ask you, is your recommendation to move the handicap entrance and close this down and then fix this, or fix this?
Let's just, initially fix the stability of the concrete so this doesn't break up any worse, so that we don't have somebody who falls through this. Because that's, a real possibility in another year.
Is this something that could wait until after, say, or at or around June 1st?
Yeah, I mean, I'm recommending this summer.
Yeah, this
for the
summer.
work to be done.
So this could be an opportunity for the new budget's contingency funding.
Sure.
Bob, what did you have in mind when you mentioned some kind of roofing, like a canopy or something to keep the moisture, the rain from going directly down on that? What did you have in mind as far as the roof?
That was just an idea that was thrown around. It would be to get the water from hitting all that area. And, we've got 3 sides that are all hit by water sitting there shoveling sidewalk and throwing it over the corners. Covering the area would be one possibility to get water from hitting it.
Well, especially since it's the side that doesn't get the sun.
My other question is, and I'm only familiar because I've been in the way that we're talking about. The other side, is there handicap parking over there?
There's a couple of spots.
Okay.
This is probably the most used entrance
Right.
for people coming to do business at the municipal building.
Hey, Bob, when you said, you think it would cost less than $100,000, correct? But
Yeah,
that means it could cost up to that.
I know
mean,
that's big, but I think with this type of work, you would ask a contractor to, do it under time and material. You would, who knows what we're gonna uncover when we take that bed down, that would.
What is the
be part
bed
of
that you're
project.
referring to?
On the second page,
Okay.
it's not in use anymore. It's an old bench for our old HVAC system.
I mean, it's hanging, right? It
Part
looks
of
like
the project, and sure, yeah, that happened in the last few days. The concrete that fell from the ramp when our parks department was working in there, I think brought the ramp down, or brought the bed down just in the last few
Yeah,
days.
in your mind's eye, and I know we're just getting into this, do you see tearing all this out and building new, or just having someone come in and form it up and repair all the bad spots?
Right. I think you take the vent out, you reseal, you recover the concrete with some structural stuff.
So it's not a complete rebuild, we're just gonna
Right.
repair the damage, is how you're.
But with that being said, you're fixing the root of the issue if you take that approach.
Well, no, I mean, you're fixing the stability
Just
issue,
fixing
the emergency issue. I mean, you can look at a picture of the entrance, and there are secondary issues, there's tripping hazards and drainage issues out there, but they all are, contributing to.
And repair isn't gonna last more than 2 years if you don't fix the root of the problem.
Right.
You patch your sidewalk because it's got a heave in it, and 2 years later it just chips out.
And that's 3 different rooms, and that's also that hallway where those are the emergency repairs from infiltration.
When can you get us a better idea? Would you have to reach out and talk to some contractors, Phil?
I think we get Jenny Cook's report, then I think we can look out to.
Because we wouldn't, I mean, we don't have guys in house that do this type of work, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And reach out to some concrete contractors to give us an idea.
Okay.
So, any further discussion on that? Good? Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Nate Smith. All in favor?
All right.
You want to do, video call next, and then we'll do finance.
Patch repair, seal that. Municipal contract, 15.
All right, so let's go to the committee of the whole next,
If
please.
you don't fix the problem, but that gives you 2 years to fix the problem.
So I'll call committee of the whole to order Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019. Let the record show that all aldermen are present. Next, we have unfinished business, PL 24-19, by myself to establish the City of Olean Sidewalk Rebate Program. So taking feedback into consideration and working with Nick and Bob a little bit more, we have, yes.
Handed it out to everybody. Did I not give you one?
I don't think
I'm sorry.
I don't think you gave me a copy.
There you go. I thought I did.
That's all right. Thank you. Okay, so a couple things that as we go through this. Again, right off the bat, we're taking out the verbiage and appearance, right? We want to establish that this rebate program is to improve the walking conditions, the safety and compliance of the sidewalks throughout the city's residential neighborhood. As far as the program funding goes, so the initial thought was that we had $50,000 set aside in a capital fund. We're short about, I don't have the other, 20. So we will have to look for an additional resolution to transfer funding into the capital account to reestablish the $50,000 balance for the program. One that came to mind that during this process here, we could kind of, I don't believe any money was spent this past year from the mosquito budget. Is that correct, Bill? So far? Right.
Not spending money.
Right. And that's about 17,000?
Yes.
So is that something that the Common Council could put in a resolution to transfer the funding from that into this
Yes.
line item? Okay.
We've done that before too, for instance.
So I mean, that would get us pretty darn close. I don't know if anyone else, as we're going through this, I've heard from a couple different people in Ward 5 that are actually pretty amped up and excited about this program. I do think it'll be popular once we hammer the rest of the details out here. So the city provides the financial assistance in the form of a rebate based on the square footage of concrete being replaced by the property owner. As we already, I think the consensus that we're all on board with is that the applicant maintains a property as their primary residence. It's owner-occupied, single-family dwelling, unit, or a duplex. But at this time, non-owner occupied dwelling units and non-owner occupied properties are ineligible for the program. This is a one-time trial of this. Who's to say whether the $50,000 that is set aside will be used up in just a small portion, and then if it is, then maybe next time around, whenever the council decides to offer this type of program again, you offer it up to more individuals, or possibly it'll get spent just based on focusing on single-family dwellings. So, running some numbers, a rebate of $6 per square foot is available for the mainline sidewalk for residential properties, $1,000 cap per property. Driveway aprons and approach sidewalks are not eligible for the rebate. I put a little tidbit in there as far as, so the dollar value amounts to a $96 rebate per, the typical block is a 4x4 block, all right? And to give some reference point, the cost of the city contractor, that if the city were to come and do this work at your house and you just said, you know what, I want the city to take care of it, in this year's budget, or I should say in this year's contract, is $232, okay, for one block. For a 4x4, correct. So what this kind of equates to is really a 40% city match. So that would mean the homeowner would have to pay 60% of that $232, and the city's reimbursement would be $96 per 4x4 block. You know, at the end of the day, that would represent a 40% cost savings for the homeowner. And I would hope would incentivize individuals to take advantage of this program to help make Olean a more walkable in our community, in our neighborhoods. At the same time, I don't think we care whether they go with, I don't think we want to, they have to go with the city contractor. If they can go and price it out and get a better rate, you know, through their own independent contractor, or if they have one bad block, right? No one's gonna, it would be too expensive. It would not be, make sense for them to go and hire a contractor. If they've got one bad block and they replace it themselves with a sledgehammer and they do it up to code and it meets the guidelines, then they still get a rebate of the $96 for a 4x4. Right, so that would be enough to cover their supplies, you know, and whatever time they put into it. So in an instance like that, it could potentially cover 100% of their costs.
So yeah, that's the same requirement that's in place right now. It wouldn't change anything.
What do you mean?
So you'd be able to put in your own individual block at this stage of the game.
Yeah. So whether you were to just say, I don't want anything to do with it, city, I want to take advantage of this program, we're going to go ahead and contract with you, and you guys have your city person, you know, at the whatever the. And Bob, you said that rate's going to change, right? The current contracted rate, June 1, or when? What is the contract through?
Yeah,
June 1st. But you know, if that's the concept, or if you want to go and find a licensed. Oh yeah, that goes to the next part that I have highlighted here. Do we want to specify? So DPW permit fees will be waived for the program participants. All concrete work must be done in accordance with the City of Olean specs and performed by a licensed contractor. Do we want to stipulate that? I don't want to say do we care, but what if in the example that I just gave you where, you know, I've got one bad block, I take a sledgehammer out there, I'm not a licensed contractor, and I, you know, hammer it up and fix it.
You might want to just put per the City of Olean's specifications, because the sidewalk, you still need to fill out a permit regardless if there's a fee or not.
And it still needs to meet the code.
Right, they still have to call New York State Dig Safely and get all the lines marked out, so even if you're hitting with a sledgehammer, you don't hit a utility line.
Right.
Because even you need that to put a tree back, you know, because they're worried about branches falling through. Then at that point, the city requires that you go over to code enforcement, make sure that the contractor that's pulling the permit or the homeowner has the proper homeowner's insurance along with the contractor having the proper insurance. So either or would work, and they want to make sure you have a workers' comp exemption, which usually is covered by your homeowner's policy, or you fill out a CE 200 form through the state.
Does anyone see a problem with omitting that? Nick, do you see any problem with that?
No, I mean, I would maybe add in, instead of omitting it, must be performed by a licensed contractor or maybe performed by the homeowner according to the City of Olean specifications.
Like asbestos remediation. If I own the house and live there, I can.
Okay, that's
I
good.
can do anything I want, but if it's a contractor.
Okay.
Yeah, the insurance, yeah. So your permit already requires those insurance requirements to be met, like workers' comp and all that other stuff. And they usually, your office usually refers over to code enforcement for workers' comp exemptions and or proof of workers' comp.
So we're waiving permit fees, but we're not waiving the permit.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because that's New York State's big deal. You call Dig Safely every time.
So we keep the performed by a licensed contractor or performed by the homeowner.
should we put in there, permit still required, however, the fees will be waived, so they don't read that and go, well, I don't know, it's just.
Yeah, this is kind of just a working draft, right?
Yeah.
Nick?
Put it in a resolution form.
As we're going through this, Bob, I'm sorry, did you have anything else to, up till now? All right.
Yeah, I just have an observation.
Sure.
on this.
Bill?
You know, I mean, if you got a neighborhood that I have one block, my neighbor has one block, you know, the neighbor across the street has one block, they could all get together
Right.
and contract to have it done, and then each get
Sure.
the rebate.
Sure.
you know, on the block. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. No, you're absolutely right. If you did it with your, no, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got a slew of neighbors that you got a bunch of tripping hazards and you really want to take care of it, you come together, then you can go out to an independent contractor, you know,
yeah.
where maybe it costs $9 a square foot rather than the city's, you know, 14 or whatever. Yeah. So eligible sidewalks include those that are heaved, sunk, cracked, broken, not, and ultimately, I guess I don't know how to stipulate that enough, not in compliance with the ADA regulations. You know, on one hand, I hope that this does take a chunk out of the decrepit sidewalks in our city, but on the other hand, like, you know, just because someone has a little crack in their sidewalk, it's got to have that tripping hazard connected to it. You know, it's just, this isn't to beautify the neighborhood, it's to make them walkable again, right? You can do both, I guess. Okay, so this falls under the DPW director, rules and regulations, as well as the application. So the concept here would be Bob put together an application that would have to be filed and completed ahead of time, including pictures of the tripping hazard, the poor sidewalks, and then a post-construction inspection is performed before releasing any sort of funding rebate.
Now, just real quick, cracks or broken sidewalk blocks obviously are not heaved, would not be a tripping hazard. But what if they're made out of different material, right? Like you can't stamp a concrete sidewalk because it doesn't have the texture to walk on, right? It's very slick in the winter and things like that. So a lot of the sidewalks in the city, not a lot, but many of them are old slate. And that slate is not up to code currently. So if someone's got a cracked but not heaved slate sidewalk, what would you tell them to do, according to this? Would you want them to replace it? Because technically it's grandfathered, but it's not a tripping hazard. See what I mean? Just throwing that out there. It's not up to code because slate is not a exactly. Thank you.
Well, if it's just cracked and it's not a tripping hazard, it's not a safety issue, and this says it has to be a safety issue.
Okay, just throwing that out there.
So, would that clarify?
Good.
And John, just going forward, kind of thinking this through, people that, or homeowners, if, once the program gets rolling, if they're turned in for, you know, if they don't actively seek this program out, but they're flagged, are they eligible for this?
I would say, yeah. I mean,
To a complaint. I'm not,
yeah.
To a complaint generated
Absolutely.
people, are they eligible?
If an order to remedy is issued to a homeowner in an owner-occupied home to fix their sidewalk,
Right. Can they
absolutely
do, oh,
should be-
hey, I want to
should be.
participate.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything magical about the 50,000? Is that just a number that you were thinking, or could we get it rolling with 30 that we have in there already?
Yeah, I mean, we could pull this together. I guess the thought process was with $50,000, and again, because it's kind of a bit of a shot in the dark. We capped it at $1,000 per property, so at least that would be 50 properties. But chances are, probably an individual homeowner might hit $500 or $600 rebate. So maybe we get twice that. You know, the idea behind it, Brian, with the 50,000 was to leverage it, right? An initial kind of was a 50-50 split to get $100,000 worth of bad sidewalks replaced in the city of Olean at a $50,000 price tag. You know what I mean? So I guess that was kind of, we got $700,000 worth of bad sidewalks in the city. This would take at least 1/7 of that away. I guess that's kind of where
Sure.
the mind.
Yeah, I was just
that
thinking
was.
is if,
Yeah.
we don't know what the
Sure.
utilization will be.
Sure,
So
that,
instead of
agreed.
Transferring funding,
Agreed.
it makes sense to start with what we
I
haven't
think
done already.
if we get to the 50,000, they just have to wait for next year.
Well,
Or if we
until
take
it's
out a
offered
contingency.
again. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we can learn a lot from this. If it goes wonderfully, then maybe the council in the future and the mayor, but I guess I really would like to try to hammer in that this is a once in a, I don't want to say once in a lifetime offer, but I really want homeowners to see that, we're throwing some skin in the game and that it's, imperative if they've been meaning to address their bad sidewalk for a number of years, now's going to be the time to do it.
Bob, can I make a suggestion? I know what we did is on the back of our water bills, we put, the leaf pickup when that comes around. Could we maybe, once we get this hammered out, put this on the back of the water bills, just so people are aware of it, because a lot of people don't read the paper, and they really don't, they don't even know who their alderman is half the time. But I just think if this is available for them to share with a neighbor, if they didn't get the information. Because I know it works well when you put the leaf pickup and stuff on the back side of that water bill.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I would obviously, if the council supports this gets passed, I would ask the mayor, maybe we could sit down and think of some other, I'm not saying we got to take out a full page ad in the Times Herald or something like that, but we could try to do some marketing to get this out there, whether it's, using the city Facebook page or something like that. Nice picture, by the way, with Mayor Pearl. Yeah. So, do we want to, I guess, just one last question that I have. Bob, is there anything so it already says that it's got to be per City of Olean specifications. Is there something in City of Olean specifications that says no specialty sidewalks? Do we care if they replace it with a specialty sidewalk? Something like a stamped sidewalk, are those still okay? Are those
Building
code? Are those
building.
I don't think stamp sidewalks.
Too slick of a surface. That's what I was getting at with the slate. 'Cause
Yeah.
slate's
Someone
slick.
has
There's a
them.
stamp sidewalk on Grant.
Right.
Somebody's got one.
Right.
Really?
Grant Court.
So there's one I feel like on.
Is it on the public right of way though?
North 3rd Street or something.
Yeah,
too.
it's a sidewalk. No, it's Jim's Bark.
That might be right behind.
But
the
I don't
wall.
know.
It's got stamp.
Do we want to is it important to specify no specialty?
I don't think you're capping square footage costs.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they are supposed
Okay.
to inspect for that when you pull the permit. Make sure you're doing a brushed finish. There's usually, I think that's even on the application when you put in for the sidewalk permit. Yeah, it's got to be brushed because you could just let the concrete dry as it is and it's super slick. That's why they ask you to go over it with a broom finish so that it's got that texture. Sure, little kids scrape their knees, but you also have better traction when you're walking. So.
Yeah. I have another question, and this is for Chief Bell. As far as our inspections, do we include the sidewalk? Say someone's going to sell their house and we do the inspection. Do we say you have to have your sidewalk in good condition? I just thought about that maybe we want to add that before you sell your house.
I'll look into it, I'm not
The
sure.
sidewalk has to be.
Usually that's on DPW.
Yeah, because I think that would
Yeah.
catch a lot of people.
I mean,
and
it
you're
doesn't
not,
mean we can't do it, but.
Right. But I mean, so the seller, is going to fix it, that way the buyer doesn't inherit the problem. It kind of nips it in the bud for us.
Isn't that a thing?
Just a thought.
I mean, I don't know if other communities do that, but I think it's an interesting concept, right? Rather than kicking the can down the road and just passing off one bad sidewalk to the next. Maybe that's too much in invasion, personal invasion. I don't know. But it's an interesting concept that, in order for the certificate of occupancy, you can't have any non-compliant sidewalk issues. I don't know.
Well,
When you
I
do-
guess,
When you do the tax lien search, it does go up to DPW and it does come back if there's a lien that's been placed on it for sidewalk owners. Perhaps what they could do is if there's been a complaint or notification, it would go on to that.
Mhm.
So we could do it on every transaction, but I'll look into it.
Okay, I was just thinking, because there's a couple houses for sale that I know of, and their sidewalks, not
Hopefully they do a home
completely.
inspection and it turns it up at that point, and
Right, but
You get
instead
it
of
hammered
passing
out.
it on to the next guy.
I would want to respond to that, depending on the amount of sidewalk or frontage that a particular property has,
Mhm.
that could be a huge addition of an expense to the sale of a property. It might not be one with a narrow front yard, but I can think of lots of properties that have big exposures of sidewalk, and it would be a deal killer.
Mhm.
And you might have a property go unsold for a long time. So I would approach that pretty cautiously, because that,
But I guess my point is, we're talking about public safety, and the public uses the sidewalks, and we're supposed to be working towards being a walkable community. So I just think as long as the public's using it, our job is to keep it safe. I mean, this
I don't
whole,
But
disagree
if
with
you
that.
can't sell a
I think
house and
that's,
continue to have light,
yeah, but listen, I just put a brand new sidewalk the whole length of my new house, and it was a little over $2,000, and the sidewalk was all cracked because, trucks driving over it and stuff. I just think if I'm someone that's gonna buy a house or sell a house, to me, that's just part of the responsibility, just as it's to make
I
sure your
don't
heater
disagree
works.
with the vision. I'm just
Everything else
saying,
works.
we live in a very old community. I don't mean talk the age of the people. I mean, the age of the city is very old,
Right.
and,
But
there's
it's-
so many, there's $700,000 in damaged sidewalks. You put kind of a noose around real estate transactions that way.
So
I think it's too much of a liability.
I don't think it should hold up the sale, though. I mean, like Nick, if somebody were to buy a property because it's got a damaged sidewalk and it gets flagged in a city inspection, does that just get translated to the new homeowner with an order to remedy?
usually.
Okay, so because if you're buying a house for $20,000, clearly you have a lot of fixer-upper to do, and you're not going to say, "Hey, old seller, like you need to fix this up," because then all of a sudden the negotiated price of the fix-it-up-at price is going to, go out the window because you're now making the old guy fix it.
So now, do we go back and the person that bought the property, do we follow up and say, you haven't fixed it yet?
Right. Well, there's
Yeah.
an order
What's the
remedy on
difference?
file. There's an order remedy on file. They don't get a certificate of
So
occupancy
that's how
for
we
inside
handle
stuff.
it on current violations. If we do the inspection, there's a violation that we don't stop the transaction, but they're not given a certificate of occupancy until that
Order.
violation is remedied. So it does go on the buyer at that point. If they choose to continue the transaction, if they choose to close the sale, then it becomes the buyer's responsibility.
Yeah, I'm just looking at ways to get sidewalks fixed.
Yeah.
And, if it's your property, you should be, willing to take care of it. Just a thought.
John, can I
Yeah,
ask you a question?
absolutely.
Is this template that we're looking at theoretically the template that might be on the back of a water bill, or?
Probably not.
I only ask because it doesn't actually tell the person how to participate in it, so
No.
we would need
Yeah,
a little bit more
it would
language
have to be-
saying.
This is more the legislative
Okay.
template, and then so I'm going to work with Nick to draw it up in formal, resolution form, and then Bob has a template for the application. We'd have to come up with, obviously I would, whatever, Bob wanted to try to market however he felt the program was best marketed.
Gotcha. So there would be
a marketing
hey,
piece.
This is how you,
Yeah.
this is who you call, this is how
Call,
you
use the
start.
application, go to the website. We put the application on the website, we'll put those all on
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
And I like Kelly's suggestion too, even though DPW fees are being waived, it specifically state DPW permit is required, that fees will be waived. I just don't think you can ever be too specific or too clear with anything like this.
Right. Okay. All right.
Did you envision this to be first come, first served?
Yeah. Yeah.
Run out of money, or,
We-
we're getting a lot of
I don't know.
applications, we have
Right.
to kind of say,
Yeah.
you may have to wait till next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the first person who signs up for the program, not first to completion. Right?
Do we want to give people who are issued orders to remedy preference over?
problem with that would be if you do first come, first serve, I would say first come, first serve completion. Because I could sign up and get in line and then wait for
Right.
6 months to
Valid
finish
point.
that project.
Sure, it just makes it
And
more
then-
difficult for them to gauge it though, because if they get like 70 people sign up for it, and then all of a sudden, you know what I mean, like now they don't know they should have told no to. But I guess they could just say, hey, this money might not be here if you don't complete fast enough. I guess you could keep it that way. So at least you just got them to do it, but they'd be pretty pissed
How long does
off.
the permit last?
Permit's supposed to be 30 days.
Gotta wait till
Permit's 30 days?
60
Gotta wait till the
days.
cement dries before we can
I
issue the
would,
rebate.
I would say you'd have to be first come, first serve to sign up, because yeah, if you did it to completion, you'd have people racing. It'd be like a competition, you know?
Why would that be a bad thing though?
Yeah.
True story. No,
Or
I mean-
could we do a time frame like?
What
we
if you
did with
just
the
establish
houses?
like a 2-month time frame?
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta
You
have
know,
a
so
permit,
first
30
come, first
30
serve,
days, 60
you
days.
get in the queue,
permit.
and you got 2 months, and if you're not completed in 2 months,
You're off the list.
you're bounced from the queue, and we go to the next person.
Yeah, because like roofing permits are like 90 days or something like that.
Bob, what do you think about that?
Or they're 60.
Just as establishing a 2-month, say like a 2-month completion. So first come, first serve on application, but you've got 2 months, the time starts ticking.
Yeah.
And if
Like
it's not
construction
completed within
seasons
2 months, then we go to the next person in the queue.
Didn't somebody just say that the permit is good for
30 days.
Yeah,
Should be tied to the permit.
You know, I mean,
Gotta
You
get
could
done
get
in
it
30
done
days.
in
the
30 days.
contract,
Wouldn't you?
the city,
Same.
But that's, the permit is not necessarily tied with the application though, is it?
Yeah, you need the permit to do the work, right?
Yep.
after
So you
30
apply
days,
for the
I
pro-
think
Go back
you
with
do first
another
come,
permit.
first served, if the money's not there at the end, you know, you reserve it, when they apply, you allocate
Yeah.
X to that application. If it doesn't get done by the end of the construction season, that money rolls back in
Yeah.
for something else. Otherwise, Bob and I were just talking, a lot of times, our concrete contractor he's not gonna get it done in that 2-month window. He could get it done, some done this week, he could get some done 3 weeks later.
Mhm.
I don't know if you wanna tie yourself in with a time like that.
Okay. Okay. Let's give it a go.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's not on us to manage it, it's on
Yeah. Right.
codes to.
And two, just because they
Figure
get
it
it
out.
doesn't mean they're gonna be eligible either.
Right.
You know, it's still, the property's gonna have to, you know, you may have people applying that are gonna be disqualified from the program.
Right. Okay. Any other questions on this?
We postponing this, or are we gonna, we're not?
Yeah, so, because it's a PL, so do I wait for a formal resolution?
No, it's in PL form now, isn't it?
Okay, so I can
So
make a
you can
motion.
Make a motion to refer it to me
Okay.
for, to draft a resolution and
Okay.
and have it for the council meeting next week.
Yeah, what Nick said. So I'm gonna make a motion to refer it to the city attorney for resolution.
To
For
approve-
draft.
To approve and refer to the city attorney for.
To approve and refer to the city
Attorney.
attorney for resolution for next week.
Next week.
Next week.
Regular meeting.
Second.
Regular meeting. Second made by Alderman Doherty. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. New referrals for consideration, none. Approval for committee reports, none. And I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Real quick.
Second.
Oh,
We didn't have approvals for committee reports?
Yes, we do.
Nope.
Need it.
So real quick,
Check.
Nope, we're not done.
Checking if,
I know we're not done. That's
Oh.
why I said real quick. Nick's taking this for approval, right? And he's going to write the legalese of it. We're all on the same page that we're just using the money that's in that account, correct? Instead of like trying to influx the additional to bring it up to 50.
I will be making,
Yeah.
I will be making a resolution to transfer.
Okay, so it will be
from
50.
the-
Okay, that's just one to double check.
Yeah, from
It'll
the,
be separate.
whatever the bug
Yeah.
budget is.
Separate PL resolution.
Yes.
So.
Any problems with that?
You know, and Linda, you may remember, but what did we talk about? There was something a while ago that we talked about using that 17,000 for. It's just something's sticking in my mind that Fred
Oh.
says I don't think we used it. But,
And it was the police department, the Segway.
oh, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, well, do you
We
want
haven't
to,
really
we
talked
can,
about
do you want to
that.
follow up and chat about then?
No, because I think we have vehicle replacement.
Funding?
We have it Friday, and I think we have money in there to fund it, so.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, did we just say segue?
I mean, I-
to the police department?
They totally did.
Yeah, okay. That's happening, we're doing that?
What's the segue to the, what do you mean,
We'll
like?
talk
Like the
about that.
Joe Bluth scooter thing?
Mall
Paul
cop.
Paul Mart.
Mall cop went bad.
That's called the segue? I didn't, sorry, my definition of the word segue is a lot different, I guess.
It's okay.
Just on a
Transition?
Yeah,
And just on a
segue.
side note, remember, in the 2019-20 budget, we did not budget for mosquito spraying. We
Right.
talked, and that may have to come out of contingency if we
If
have
it's
to.
used.
so.
Yep.
I like the observe and report.
So, Bill, are you okay with submitting a resolution for that then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, so did you get that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I do have to approve committee reports?
Yes.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve committee reports.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? So I'll now follow up with my motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Now the kids can leave.
Yeah, you guys are done.
Unless you want to stay for the budget.
Yeah, we got budget talks. This stuff's exciting.
You guys are all thinking, man, this was painful.
Holy cow, look at all the notes you took.
I'm impressed.
City's about to sign a contract with Netflix. You're gonna start seeing all the council
Really?
on Netflix.
Wow.
Yeah, get
Yeah, I
excited,
signed
huh?
some
Friday night.
a sheet and a half of notes.
Feel bad for you.
Good job, everybody.
So we're going to go over Bill's list. I'll have Fred go through.
Nice night.
I want that coin. We should, so you should get,
Hi, guys.
somebody should reach out to Netflix to see if they'll just do, like, public meetings across the country. You can just log into.
Brian.
Yellow resolution for the signage?
Yes.
For next week?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
And you're doing
We'll
the
just wait
demo
till Kelly
too?
gets back.
Yep, for 412.
Yeah, let's take a little break, maybe?
Yeah, we'll just wait for Kelly to get back for the finance.
Like that? Nice.
You know the answer to that?
Yeah, he was making
I feel like we should refer the stuff to me.
altering
It's not right up.
Yeah.
I knew he would say no.
I mean, I'm right here.
It'll keep you up all night, Fred.
It sounds more fancy when you're saying.
Glimmer of kindness.
Sounds like we're doing something really clever.
What's that?
We'll give you a few
Hey,
minutes.
John.
Just let me know for the
Hey,
part.
John.
And- oh,
When does the budget have to pass by? What is the deadline?
April 15th.
A week from Monday.
April 15th?
When are we planning on passing the budget? This coming Tuesday?
Next Tuesday would be the last regular meeting to do it. Otherwise, we'd have to
So
call
this
a,
coming Tuesday?
otherwise we'd have to call a special meeting. Yeah.
Yes, Nate.
Are you gonna
This
be in
Tuesday.
town?
He's not gonna be around.
I will.
A week
Oh,
from
for next
today.
Tuesday.
I will be here this coming Tuesday.
Yeah.
A week from today.
And the week after.
Okay, is everybody?
Fred Witt, kick off.
Remember the Fred Stones?
Okay.
Okay,
Linda Crawford, let's go.
What was,
you ready? Let's call the Finance Committee to order for Tuesday, April 2nd. Let the record show all committee members are present. Approval of the minutes. I'll make a motion. A second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unfinished business. New referrals for consideration is the budget discussion. And we presented some ideas to the mayor, and we got a response. And I don't know if the mayor or Fred wants to go through this.
I'll go through it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I missed my deadline by about 3 minutes, I think, sending this out there. I thought I'd have it out by noon today, so, but anyways, what you have before you is a letter or a memo from me, and I'll just start out with the suggestions. Suggestion number 1 is deduct airport runway, $23,000. At this time, we're okay with this suggestion. I had a discussion with DPW, with Bob on this. Same way as with the airport fuel, $20,000. So we are good with that suggestion. The salt deduction, $20,000. We're okay with it, but I must caution the council that in the event of severe winter, we are going to have to act fast to secure additional salt. and that would have to come from the 2019-20 general contingency fund.
So Mayor, do we have much salt left over from this year?
I don't know, Bob, what do we?
We have 2 full days, which is, we think we're done ordering salt for the year, and we like to keep them full.
Okay.
We may submit a snowstorm, and we'll get one in October.
So next year, if we have an early snowfall, we do have some salt.
We cover
We
a
could
couple
start.
weeks of them, yeah.
Okay.
How many bays do we go through in a snowstorm, I guess?
I don't know, do they, like, maybe 1 day for a storm?
Okay, just checking, I didn't.
Well, just for
Okay.
just so the aldermen know, Bob, would you go over how we have to order, what we have to do? We have to take so much and, can you go over?
We set a tonnage amount. It's been the same for a number of years, like 2,600 tons.
Okay.
And then we have to use 70% of that. So or we get penalized. If we use over 100%, salt allotment, it's a 10% upcharge. And then there's also a 20% upcharge at another threshold. I'm not 100% sure what that is.
Is that through, because it's a contracted, like a state bid thing? Is that?
Yeah,
I guess so.
Yeah, and there's really, from what I know, there's really only one supplier. You know,
Is that the one up by Rochester?
But yeah, I believe that's the supplier for the municipality. But the other thing is, Fred reminded me too, that usually we have to pay for the salt within 10 days.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying, we have to be able to act probably within, 1 meeting.
Sure.
To get this. So I just wanted to, just so everybody knows that.
We don't have to pay any other contractor for like 30 to 60 days,
I heard
except for the salt people.
You're a
That's
global
funny.
warming.
Yeah.
Our utilities, we have to pay right away.
Oh, really? Oh. I thought we have to use them, we get a bill, then it goes to 30 days, it gets to the council, we sign off on it, then you cut checks.
Okay. Anyways, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Suggestion number 4 was to deduct parking lot kiosks. We would like to keep this purchase in the budget. I know the council looks at it as a nicety, but in reality, it is the future of parking in our business district. Latest information from the clerk's office, if we were to increase the parking from 25 cents per hour to 50 cents an hour for lot 6, where the kiosks would go, it's projected to be $8,800 for the budget year 2019, 2020. This would reduce the payback kiosks to about 2 years.
So, my take on this bill, and I'm on the parking committee or whatever is that right? The parking committee?
Yeah.
And I like the idea of moving to the kiosks. My takeaway on this is, right now we have zero cost for revenue that's being created with the old-fashioned, what do you call those things? Parking meters, yeah. And we could, hypothetically, increase the rate from 25 cents per hour to 50 cents an hour on those parking meters.
Not without
configuring all of them?
Yeah. So
okay.
You're gonna have
there would be a cost associated with reconfiguring them.
Right.
Now, I guess, just to sum it up, would it not make potentially more sense to target an area that is currently not bringing in any revenue at all? So the way I look at this is, and going from these numbers, I'm trying to remember, I sat down and looked at what Lens provided, something along the lines of like that lot right now provides $4,000 a year, let's call it, in revenue. And now it's going up to $8,000 a year. So that's not an $8,000 payback per year. The opportunity cost there is that additional $4,000 per year, which would give it a payback of at least 4 years. I guess what I'm asking is, or saying, I'm in favor of these kiosks. I completely agree with the idea that they are the future for the parking for the business district. But would it not be more revenue beneficial to target an area that has currently we're getting nothing from it? And I don't know where exactly that would be, if there's another lot or if there is some part of our downtown district that we could start earning revenue from, rather than replacing one you guys understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
This is the found capital is 8,800 somewhere zero. Please.
Well, just a second. The area that's not receiving any revenue right now is where we remove the meters on North Union and on West State.
Okay.
So, we could, I mean, it would take more devices
Right.
to, say if we did this from State and Union to the tracks.
Right.
Say we targeted that area. And it would probably take 2, 4, maybe, I can't remember, do you remember what they recommended on how much area?
I couldn't give you a total number, no.
Let's say we put 1 on each side of the street in each block, so that'd be 2, or we could probably get away with 6 or 8 of them on the street.
On North Union Street?
On North Union Street, yeah.
Yeah, I don't wanna do that though. I'm not in favor of doing that. What was the whole point of, why did we take them out before? I mean, there's a bigger picture than making an extra $4,500 a year, right? Like, what are we even talking about?
The reason the meters were taken out is because of the construction, they're unsightly, they didn't want to put them back in.
Right, and then,
Anywhere you go.
they were left out because we want people to park and come and shop and you know
No,
what I mean?
I think they were left out, Paul, because they didn't want to put the unsightly old-fashioned meters back in. Anywhere you go, with very few exceptions, you're gonna find parking kiosks, almost anywhere you travel anymore, except for maybe like a place like Ellicottville. They are the future of parking. John, you're on the right track, and as is Bill, I mean, in the parking meeting when we discussed this, and Bob and I talked about this at length, the concept, and Bob, feel free to chime in if you want, was to ideally convert